Chapter 9.
"Keep quiet and stay hidden, my lady,"
said the woodcutter, sneaking Winifred from the castle courtyard on the back of his cart. It was already sunset when they left Castle Chaserton. The woodcutter drove an empty cart after having dropped off the cut wood he'd collected for her grandfather from the royal forest earlier that day. Winifred stayed hidden under the blanket, listening to the voices of the guards up on the battlements, as well as the clip-clop of the horses' hooves on the cobbled stone as they made their way toward the castle gate. She'd been lucky to find the woodcutter when she'd visited the orchards earlier. He'd relayed to her that Lord Hugh de Bar was severely wounded and wasn't expected to live through the night. He'd also told her that Wolf had gone to a hidden hovel in the knoll, deep in the woods, to be alone and die. Winifred knew exactly where that was. Wolf was at the witch's hut where her grandfather had trapped the old hag. Feeling bad about it, she had to do something to help him. Wolf must have been hurt when he'd saved her from the witch, and she felt responsible for his condition. Thoughts entered her mind of being in his arms and kissing him once again. If he were to die before she told him her feelings for him, she would never forgive herself. Lord Hugh de Bar wasn't the horrid man she'd first thought him to be. If so, he wouldn't have risked his life to save her. She had to thank him for that. And if she had to sneak out of the castle against her grandfather's orders to do it, then so be it. They traveled for a while along the bumpy road, and then the cart finally stopped. Winifred grabbed her crossbow and bolts, as well as a covered basket full of food. Slipping out from under the blanket, she dismounted the cart. There was a chill in the night air. Thankful for the red cloak she wore to keep her warm, she pulled it around her tightly. Perhaps a black cloak, or one that blended into the night and hid her identity, would have been a better choice. However, for some reason, she wanted to wear the cloak that Wolf had given her. She liked it, and also liked the fact he called her Red. "Where are we?" she asked. "This isn't the knoll in the woods."
"Nay, but I can't travel any further with you, so you'll have to continue on foot."
"Why can't you?"
"Because I have some other business to attend to first. You have your crossbow for protection. You won't need me."
"I don't even have a horse. At least let me take the cart. Please." The woodcutter thought about it for a moment. When she was sure he would say no, he nodded and dismounted.
"All right. But do be careful. After all, you can't trust anyone."
His dark eyes stared at her, causing a sudden chill to sweep through her body. Did he mean she couldn't trust him either? As she quickly climbed atop the wagon, she spied the woodcutter heading away on foot. "Wait! Don't you want your axe?" She pointed to the axe on the seat next to her.
"Oh, how careless of me to forget it. Of course."
When Winifred handed the weapon to him, a sick feeling churned in the pit of her stomach. Mayhaps she should have kept the axe for protection for herself.
"Now hurry, my lady. He's in the hovel in the knoll, not far from here. You'll want to get to him before he dies."
"Aye, I will." She directed the horse forward and sped through the woods. Glancing back over her shoulder to thank the woodcutter, her eyes scanned the vacant area. He was already gone. Wolf bent over and looked up the flue, trying to find a passageway for the smoke from the hearth to exit. He couldn't find one, yet the room was not filled with smoke either. It was fascinating. Perhaps this had been constructed with magic somehow. He paced the floor, waiting for Winifred. Drawn to the mystical hand mirror on the dressing table, he walked over and picked it up. Why would the woodcutter want this mirror in the first place, unless he knew about the magic? To his surprise, a fog appeared in the mirror again. When it cleared, a picture took shape before his very eyes. Someone in the shadows rushed through the woods. He also saw the woodcutter's cart and horse, with Winifred driving it through the forest, headed right for the hovel. "She's here," he said, taking a few steps across the room and stopping abruptly as pain shot through him.
"Damn! Not now!"
His change was coming on, and he could do nothing to stop it. Usually this only took place at night. The woodcutter had taken so long to sneak the girl out of the castle that his opportunity had diminished. Why couldn't the man have listened to orders and just waited until the morrow, since it was now dusk? Wolf had to do something, but wasn't sure how to handle this. He needed to lie down during his change and tried to make it to the door, but the pain was too intense. His bones shifted and his vision blurred. The sound of the cart pulling up to the hovel made him realize it was too late to leave now. Red would see him in the midst of his change, and probably be horrified. If she ran back to the castle, her grandfather wouldn't come looking for her after all, and his plans would be ruined. So he did the only thing he could, waiting out his transformation. He ran over to the bed and closed the black curtains around him. With his body and head under the covers, the thought of Red seeing him in his wolf form made him want to die. Winifred dismounted the wagon and tied the horse's reins to a tree. Her eyes scoped her surroundings in the dark. She was sure she heard the pitter-patter of paws in the brush following her, and wondered if it was Lord Hugh de Bar in his wolf form. When she stopped and listened and no longer heard anything, she decided she must have just imagined it. So, with her crossbow over her shoulder and the bolts at her side, she grabbed the basket of goodies and headed toward the secret hovel. Cautiously approaching the threshold, it was a surprise to see the door open. Her eyes scanned the room. A fire blazed in the hearth, giving the room a warm glow. "Wolf?" she asked in a small voice, feeling nervous and anxious to be here at all. "The woodcutter told me you were wounded. I brought some food, as well as healing ointments in my basket. Can I help you?" When she heard nothing, she bravely took a step forward into the room and looked around. "Is anyone here?" Her heart raced. Starting to wonder if she should be here at all, a muffled noise from the bed took her attention. "Oh, you're in bed." The velvet curtains around the bed were closed. Of course. What was she thinking? That he'd be standing there to greet her? The woodcutter had said he was hurt and dying. What did she expect? She took a few steps forward. A breeze blew through the room, making the door slam shut behind her. Turning on her heel, her hand grabbed for her crossbow in the process. When she realized it was just the wind, she released the breath she'd been holding, trying to still her rapidly beating heart. Winifred heard a moan, or whimper, followed by the rustling of the bed covers from behind the curtains. "Thank goodness you're still alive." She put down her crossbow and ran to the bed, still holding on to the basket. Pulling back the curtains, she spied a lump underneath the covers. "Wolf, how do you feel?" It was hard to see anything in the semi-darkened room, but at least she knew he wasn't dead yet. He remained hidden under the covers. "Mayhap this will make you feel better." Gently placing the basket down on the edge of the bed, she opened it. The aroma of fresh brown baked bread drifted out into the air, filling the room. She took a deep breath and released it. "Can you smell that?" she asked him. "It smells so good it makes me hungry. Do you want something to eat?" Offering the bread toward the lump under the blanket, it confused her as to why he was acting so shy. Then she heard a growl instead of his voice. She froze, and her heart sped up frantically. Out from under the covers sprang a big black wolf, with his tongue hanging out and a menacing look in his eyes. "Ah!" she screamed, and threw her bread to the ground, diving for her crossbow. Her fingers fumbled with the bolt. Dropping it twice before she was able to load it, she finally pulled back the windlass to line up her shot. Springing to her feet, her aim was on the wolf, while her grandfather's warning resounded in her head. The wolf looked at her intensely. But, instead of devouring her as she thought it would, it lay down on the bed and rolled over and whimpered. It showed her its stomach, becoming vulnerable, just waiting for her to kill it. "Wolf?" She looked from the corner of her eye in question. When she was sure the wolf wasn't going to hurt her, She slowly bent over and put her crossbow on the chair. "Is that you?" Her eye caught a sparkle in the firelight from the hand mirror on the dressing table. Having an idea, she slowly backed up to get it. Hadn't she seen the witch's true form in the mirror? If this wolf were Lord Hugh de Bar, mayhap she'd be able to see his true form as well. As she picked up the hand mirror and hesitantly turned her back on the wolf, she only hoped this wasn't the biggest mistake of her life. Peering into the mirror, she waited. There was a fog within it that slowly cleared. When it did, she saw Lord Hugh de Bar lying on the bed on his back, naked, looking at her with sad eyes. "It is you! You're the wolf!" She put down the mirror and ran to the bed, covering the wolf's body with her own. Tears rolled down her cheeks. This had to be horrible for him. Closing her eyes, she gathered the animal in her arms. Her tears hit the wolf's head, making it wet. Dragging her cheek against its fur, her heart went out to him. "I'm so sorry, Wolf. I can't imagine how awful this is for you. And I'm sorry that I'm not able to help you." Something happened just then. The fur against her cheek didn't feel so soft anymore. It felt like the stubble of whiskers from a man. The body of the wolf shifted, growing in her embrace. Her eyes sprang open. Releasing him, she pushed back and watched in horror and awe as the wolf started to transform. Winifred couldn't believe what she was witnessing. The wolf's limbs grew longer, and its chest grew wider. The animal cried out in pain. A swirl of fog encompassed the beast. Odd noises she'd never heard before filled the room. When the fog cleared, lying on the bed in front of her, was the naked, glorious body of Lord Hugh de Bar. Wolf. You! "Aye, I'm a man now, but I was a wolf," he answered. "I'm sorry you had to witness this, Red, but it's part of my curse." "I'm so sorry." "Now do you see why I harbor so much resentment for your grandfather?" She didn't answer. Instead, her heart was filled with joy that he wasn't dead, and that he was a man again. Falling into his arms, she kissed him passionately on the lips. "What was that for?" he chuckled. "That was for saving me from that awful witch. If you hadn't come in your wolf form to scare her off, I'd be dead right now." One kiss followed another as his arms closed around her. She felt him growing beneath her, in ways that had nothing to do with shapeshifting. Surmising his shoulder, she realized it was healed. There wasn't even a scar. "I thought you were hurt and dying, but I don't even see your wound anymore." "You healed me, and by doing it, you also healed Arnon. I thought I told you that in some ways we're connected." He had to be talking about the curse. "Wolf, I was afraid you'd die before I told you how I felt about you." "How do you feel about me, Red?" His voice was low and husky. It made her all tingly inside. "I am very attracted to you. I also feel something when we're together that I've never felt with anyone before." "It's called lust," he told her, smiling and allowing her to see his teeth. Those were the same teeth that she thought moments ago were going to eat her. They kissed again, and when they did, his hands expertly removed her cloak. His fingers fumbled with the ties of her bodice. "What are you doing?" she asked, knowing only too well and liking every minute of it. "I want you, Red, more than I've ever wanted any woman in my life." Is this the animal lust coming out? I'm not sure, but does it matter? He pushed her bodice from her shoulders and ran his hand across the bare skin of her chest, dipping his fingers down into her cleavage. A thrill ran through her. Though she should have felt wanton, she didn't. Something about the magic in this room and the magic that filled Wolf made her deepest desires come to the surface. No longer could she deny them. His thumbs flicked across her nipples, making them instantly taut. Then he fondled her breasts as he kissed her once again. When his tongue shot out and entered her mouth, it excited her to the point that she heard the slight moan of desire at the back of her throat. "It doesn't matter. I want you too," she said, feeling his hand sliding up her thigh, pushing her gown upwards inch by inch. With the next kiss, his hands fondled her buttocks. He pulled her tight against his hardened form. "I'm so hard I could burst, Red. I lust for you. I'm not going to lie." "I lust for you as well, and I'm ashamed to say I can't control it. Is this part of the curse? Are we both under a spell?"
"I know I am. But the question is, are you? If you want to stop this, do it now, because I'm almost at the point of no return."
Winifred didn't know if it was the curse, a spell, or magic making her feel as loose as the woman's red cloak she wore, but she no longer cared. She wanted to be free of her grandfather and make her own choices. Right now, she chose Wolf. She felt an intense attraction to him, even though their families were enemies. "I don't want to stop," she admitted. "I want to make love to you, Wolf." He stared into her eyes and brushed back a lock of her hair with his hand. "You have such beautiful big green eyes," he told her in a soft voice. "Better to see you with," she said, and giggled softly. When she pushed away from him, he looked disappointed, until he realized she was disrobing. "You are beautiful, Red." He reached out and pulled her naked body atop his hardened form, making her squeal in delight. A smile lit up his face as he kissed her on the lips, letting his hands slide up the back of her bare thighs, causing her to shudder in anticipation. "I like the sound of your voice when you're being pleasured." "Who said I was pleasured yet?" She raised her rear and scooted down his chest, placing small kisses on him along the way, using her hands to feel his biceps. He was the one to moan in desire this time. "You smell fresh and sweet like flowers." He buried his nose in the hair at the top of her head. "I wonder if you taste as sweet as well." She looked up to see him staring at her intensely with one brow raised. "You've already kissed me, so I think you'd know that answer." "Indeed I have. And if I'm not mistaken, you offered me something to eat." That dangerous look was back in his eyes, but this time, instead of being scared, it excited her. He rolled her off the top of him, onto her back, and took the place of the aggressor. Then he straddled her hips, and the tip of his manhood brushed against her thighs. Being careful to keep his weight off of her, he kissed her on the chest, trailing kisses lower and lower until his head was at her waist. "Do you want some bread to eat?" Her heart beat wildly when she felt his breath going lower and lower. "It's not food I want. I'm going to eat you, my dear. Now just lay back and relax, and you will experience pleasure like never before." "You're going to... She couldn't finish her sentence because his head was between her thighs and the wetness of his mouth was on her womanhood. At first she tensed, but then relaxed. Anticipation filled her as his tongue shot out to trace her nether lips, teasing, tempting, making her grab his long black hair in her hands and throw back her head and moan. "Oh, Wolf! I can't believe how good this feels." "It gets better," he said, sliding off of her and spreading her legs apart with his hands. She eagerly opened for him and was surprised when he dipped down again. This time his tongue did its magic. He pulled her legs up over his shoulders, bringing her whole torso up off the bed. He grabbed her buttocks and buried his head deep between her thighs. Using his lips and tongue to pleasure her, he found the sensitive nub that made her cry out loudly as she arched up off the bed, almost shattering from his sensual actions. She gasped, feeling herself climbing higher and higher, getting closer to the precipice of elation. Before she knew it, she shattered right there with his mouth on her most private place. Arching her back and throwing caution to the wind, she screamed out, "Yes!" Tears came to her eyes, because she had no idea such an act could bring about such stimulating feelings within her. Then she gently put her hips back down on the bed. Cool air rushed against her hot body. Wolf leaned over and kissed her, the essence of lovemaking intermingling on their tongues, only exciting her more. With her legs wide open, eagerly awaiting the feel of the rest of him inside her, he thrust his entire length into her. Sliding in and out slowly, he guided her hips to rock and meet his thrusts. Her body stretched, accepting his engorged form, passion flowing like wine. And when he came, he growled at first, and then howled like a wolf. It only excited her more. Winifred shattered yet another time in his arms, though she didn't think it possible. Spent and sated, he collapsed onto the bed next to her, never once letting her out of his protective embrace. She'd now coupled with a man she barely knew, and yet she felt as if she'd known him her entire life. Maybe magic was involved. Maybe not. But either way, bedding Wolf would surely change the fact that they were enemies. Now, they were lovers instead.